Hello, hello, divine miracles, divine marvels, limitless possibility. Just waiting, seeking to be what it is, to be what we are, free, creative, and truly limitless beings. So, um, having explored Tantra for a very long time, I've come to some really very clear conclusions. And they're actually not my conclusions, but so the thing is why are we doing this thing called Tantra? So what's our motive? Motive is everything, especially with Tantra. Because here's the thing, in classical Tantra, before you were even sexual with anyone, there would be such intense preparation. One example is you had to sit naked in front of your partner, looking at each other's body until there was no sexual desire left, until you had no interest in sex. Then you got to touch. And that's just one example. In Tibetan Buddhist Tantra, which is still a very classical tantric path, one very famous Lama said, until you can drink urine and eat feces without aversion, you're not ready for sexual Tantra. So, what are they talking about? What do they mean we have to be so detached and so have no lust before we can practice Tantra? Well, what's happened is Tantra's become commercialized and toned down. So let's look at the commercialized part is easy, but let's look at the toned down part. So the thing is originally Tantra was a path for people who had a similar level of detachment as monks and nuns. And over time, it became, there was also sort of a little bit of Tantra offered to what are, householders, people who were interested in spiritual things yet weren't renunciates. And now it's been brought to the West and completely commercialized. And so I'm not opposed to any of that, actually. I've had a ball. I really appreciate, and I've gotten a lot of benefit out of what we're getting here in the West is scholars are calling neo-tantra. And God bless it. I love it. I've gotten so much healing. I've had a lot of fun. It's brought a lot of sex into my life. It's brought a lot of healing into my life, and it's brought a lot of bridging the gap between spirit and sex. It's really brought the sacred into my bedroom, and I'm eternally grateful. And what we've been taught, it's really not what's originally intended. I'm not saying anyone shouldn't do it, but the path I find myself on now, and the path I'm really excited to let people know about, is more of a classical tantric path that uses some of the tools that we've been taught, but only as a preparation. And if, some people that might be, some people may not be drawn to do it any further. Some people just want to spice up their sex life a little bit, bring a little more harmony into their relationships. And that's completely beautiful. And what I want to let people know is I have started to have profound expansions of consciousness and personality changes and radical awakenings. And I'm not just talking about like big orgasms, which, I've had. That's great. Thank you. What I'm talking about is shifts in consciousness through sexual Tantra. The thing is, though, is what's changed in me is I am starting to approach it truly as a, my goal is no longer pleasure. My goal is no longer pleasure. I love pleasure when it comes, but I'm not 100%, but I'm not seeking it. I'm not looking to Tantra to give me pleasure. I'm looking to Tantra now for healing, awakening, ultimately for liberation, which is what it originally was, is literally a path to enlightenment, and not just liberation. I don't like the word enlightenment anymore. Let's just say liberation, an end of suffering, and actualization. There's a very vast tradition, especially in the Tibetan tradition, of people really becoming freaking superhero rock stars through following the Tantra path. But these weren't people who were like, having better orgasms wasn't their goal, and having harmonious relationships wasn't their goal. Not opposed to bigger orgasms, harmonious relationships. Love them both. More, please. So, why does all this matter? Well, because Tantra is playing with and working with all three of the most powerful forces in the human experience: sexual desire, love, tenderness, vulnerability, and whatever you want to call this, transcendence, the sacred, the infinite, and our desire for that, our desire for freedom. So it's okay to just do Neo-Tantra and just have a better sex life, have more fun, and to take the next step. What's required is true detachment, true desire, to put the desire for liberation, and I'll use the Buddhist language, the desire for Buddhahood. Now, in the Buddhist tradition, in Mahayana Buddhist tradition, Buddhahood isn't just a state of consciousness. It's actually to become a perfected being. The closest example we'd have in the West is to become a Christ, able to do what Christ did. In the Mahayana tradition, a Buddha is literally omniscient, able to know everything simultaneously. And in the Tibetan tradition, the Mahasiddha tradition, many beings attained states that it's hard to call these people mortals anymore. But to get that nookie, we have to give up our desire for nookie. So this is just a little introduction to classical Tantra compared to Neo-Tantra. I'm starting to think of it as true Tantra, but that's just my way of languaging. And keep your eye out for more videos. I wish you a day full of explosive orgasms or explosive peace, or, and this is the tantric way, ecstatic suffering. That ultimately what we're after is to experience everything as making love, even pain, even the worst thing imaginable. That we can actually, that doesn't mean we're going to seek those things out, but when they do come, that it is possible to not just embrace, but actually enjoy. And talk about an end of fear. Can you imagine not just not being afraid of things, but actually having a kind of orgasmic union experience of lovemaking when the worst thing is happening to you? Because that's non-duality. That's the ultimate expression of non-duality. That everything is the divine making love to the divine, always eternally. And that's the play party I want to play in forever.